What if death wasn't the end? What if the ones you lost returned? Not just in memory, but in flesh and blood, carrying echoes of a life they had already lived and left behind. Tonight, we delve into the dark and unsettling story of the Polak twins, a story of tragedy, reincarnation, and eerie premonitions that will make you question everything you believe about life, death, and the space in between. It was a cold, rainy evening, the kind where shadows seemed to linger a little longer than they should. John Pollock, a man both ordinary and extraordinary, paced his dimly lit study, pipe in hand. His family slept peacefully upstairs, unaware of the storm brewing in John's mind. He could not rest. Life's most terrifying and tantalizing question consumed him: what happens after death? John believed he had the answer. He was convinced that life did not end with the last heartbeat. But proof, real, tangible, undeniable proof, remained elusive. Against the teachings of his church, he prayed with desperation, seeking answers not from Holy Scripture, but from something deeper, something beyond human comprehension. He did not pray for heaven or hell. He prayed for the return of the soul, for evidence that life continues on earth in a cycle unseen. Then, one night, the warning came, not from a vision, not from a dream, but from his own child. 14-year-old Ian screamed, a sound that tore through the silence of the night like a knife. John rushed to his room to find Ian drenched in sweat, eyes wide with terror. "It was a dream, but it felt so real," Ian stammered. "Someone in the family will be hurt. It'll happen, just down the street." John tried to calm his son, but a chill ran down his spine. There was something in Ian's terror, a certainty in the boy's voice, that made John feel as if a dark shadow had already fallen across their lives. And indeed, just days later, that shadow became flesh. Sunday, May 5th, 1957. The morning was deceptively calm, a thin mist clinging to the streets of Hexham. Joanne, aged 11, and Jacqueline, aged 6, set off for church, hand in hand with their friend Anthony, 9. It was just a short walk from home. Nothing seemed unusual. But something was waiting for them. A green car, moving faster than a sane driver should dare. The vehicle mounted the pavement, racing toward the children like a predator closing in on its prey. The collision was instantaneous and brutal. Joanne and Jacqueline were killed on impact. Anthony, thrown into a garden, would not survive the injuries inflicted by the speeding car. The driver, Marjorie Wynne, remained behind the wheel, barely conscious, a woman consumed by depression and drugs, lost in her own fractured reality. The town of Hexham was shaken. Newspapers carried the tragedy nationwide, the horror of it seared into the public's mind. For John Pollock, the world contracted into the four walls of his study. He drank scotch, listened to classical music, and sought answers in the quiet, haunted hours of the night. The girls were gone. Or were they? John refused to accept finality. He predicted that his wife Florence would give birth to twin girls who would carry the reincarnated souls of Joanna and Jacqueline. Florence, still mourning, found the idea strange, almost grotesque. To her, the thought of welcoming life while surrounded by the grief of loss was unbearable. Yet life moves in mysterious, sometimes terrifying ways. Florence gave birth, and when John saw the small birthmark above Jennifer's eye, a scar identical to the one Jacqueline had carried, he knew. Proof had arrived. As the twins grew, chilling parallels began to emerge. Jillian walked with the same posture as Joanna. Jennifer gripped her pen the same way Jacqueline had. Both claimed the old dolls, Mary and Susan's names the deceased sisters had given them. The house itself seemed alive with memories, echoing the tragedy in whispers and shadows. The girls exhibited memories of events they could not possibly have known. Cars terrified them. Streets were dangerous. They screamed in terror at sudden movements of vehicles, huddling as if reliving moments from a life they had not yet lived or had already lost. Years later, the family revisited Hexham. The twins' eerie familiarity with the town was impossible to ignore. They pointed out their old school, the Pollock family home, and even a playground they had never visited. These were places they could not have known, yet they remembered. Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist from Virginia, began studying the case. Over 2 decades, he observed the twins' behaviors, their birthmarks, and their uncanny recollections, yet he noted the complications: John's obsession, grief's influence, and the possibility that the twins may have overheard stories about their lost sisters. The case remained haunting, full of ambiguities but undeniable in its eerie details. Life continued to shadow the Pollocks with grief and strange occurrences. Florence died suddenly at 57. John remarried quickly, maintaining a close connection with the twins but alienating his older children in the process. Even as adults, fragments of memory haunted Jillian and Jennifer. Jillian once recalled playing in a sandpit at a house she had never lived in, an impossible memory, yet clear as day. John himself, in later years, claimed past life memories through hypnotic regression, describing burial rituals in the 17th century. These claims, while controversial, reinforced his obsession with life beyond death. John Pollock died suddenly in 1985, a heart attack, ending the life of a man who had spent decades chasing a terrifying truth. The twins' memories, though faded, lingered like shadows, hinting at the lives they had once lived. The story of the Pollock twins is not just one of reincarnation. It is a story of obsession, grief, and the human inability to let go. It is about shadows that linger long after the light fades and questions that refuse to die. Photographs, birthmarks, and memories have fascinated skeptics and believers alike. Yet the horror lies not in the possibility of reincarnation, but in the relentless human desire to hold on to life, even when it has passed.